Welcome back to another riveting episode of That Range Life. I believe it's episode 83. This is not Chris McEwen. This is his YouTube page. Do us a favor, subscribe, like, hit the bell, do all the usual stuff. Let's get right to it. Chris is in Hawaii. We have our nephew Josh behind the ones and twos here, on the ones and twos, doing the hard stuff. This guy, what a treat for me, for Josh, and for all of you. This, my friends, is Ryan French, Monday Q Info on Twitter. Welcome to the show.
Guys,
Welcome.
thanks for having me. I feel like I should be in a bucket hat. I forgot about that. Chris always in a bucket hat, so
he is always in a bucket hat.
That's my fault, but thank you for having me on, guys.
So it's interesting here. You're a big deal on Twitter. We talk about this all the time. At a case of the golf 1, at a case of the golf 2's the misses.
Yes.
And that's all the case of the golfs we need to worry about.
Correct.
All right. You live like 5 minutes from my house. So you and I cross paths a little bit, and it's still wild to me when I see any Monday Q Info stuff on Twitter and insert big name here, important person in golf there. And I was like, oh, you mean that guy that's sitting in my parents' backyard with me right now talking into a USB microphone while my neighbors walk by and look at us? It's weird.
I mean, it's weird for me that people know who I am, and it's weird for me like when my tweets show up on Golf Channel or whatever. It's been a surreal ride. I'm very lucky. I hope I never get to the point where I think that people should know who I am. I try my best to not do that. So I'm glad to be sitting in your parents' backyard with a garden behind us.
It's pretty. We thought about this. It is hotter than hell. Let's be honest. We have we're racing against a thunderstorm right now.
True.
But in the name of humor to who, I don't know it, but I just feel like this is a funny setting for what we're doing here. This lovely garden that my mom and dad worked very hard on. And frankly, it's more picturesque than anything at my house, so that's why we walked across the street and did it here. We did record here once with Tour Edge.
Ooh.
And it was freezing, had a couple drinks, had some delicious homemade Chex Mix. I should have told my mom we were doing this. She would have made you some totally. Oh, All right, so a couple things today. I feel like you have so many stories. There's almost too much to talk about with you, and
okay.
I mean that in a good way. I don't even know where to begin. Let's do a little gear talk. We're going to give it a shot, see how the two of us do with gear talk. But
sure.
We're going to talk about
you will do better than I do. But
that's fine. Well, that's up for debate. We're going to talk about the Sub70 849 Pro driver, the new model. Our good friend Jay Armour of Sub70 hits it very far. Sneak peek. And then, I don't know, we'll just see where this thing takes us, all right?
Sounds good.
All right, let's do some gear talk. All right, Ryan.
Thing looks nice.
Sub70 849 Pro driver. Ever heard of these guys? Do you know them?
I play them.
Oh, that's right. So we played a couple weeks ago, right? I think 2 weeks now.
Yeah.
And Jay Armour of Sub70 recently broke. He went Sub70.
Yes.
With this driver in his bag. Oh, look, there's a hummingbird. There's 2 hummingbirds. Believe this, guys?
There is 2 hummingbirds.
Recording this show
Right
in
over
nature. What a serene setup.
Josh missed that with the camera.
He did.
To be fair.
He's being a grade A producer right now.
Yeah.
He doesn't have time for nature.
Right.
Anyway, Jay had this in his bag and recently went Sub70 literally. It's an interesting little driver, and one of the things they bill it as is the epitome of less is more. It's a small, and I don't quite know if that means like there's not a bunch of bells and whistles, a ton of technology, or if that's it's a smaller, compact profile. It's only 450 cc's for all you gear nerds. Usually, these oversized drivers are 460. Doesn't necessarily look tiny, but it definitely isn't full size. It has a little bit of a deeper face. This is where Chris can insert supplementary photos to give you a good view.
Perfect.
But, there's 3 adjustable weights on the bottom, so you can dial in that center of gravity for optimal launch, flight shape, however you want it. Get the center of gravity where you need it. But that's about it. Now I got another giant butt. I didn't think this was going to be as high risk of a natural environment.
Yeah, I mean,
we should have done this indoors in retrospect. Anyway, this is for your better player, your lower handicap, the guy who likes to, or gal who likes to control the ball, take the spin off of it. Low spin. This is a low spin. That said, you need a little spin. You can put a different driver shaft in it probably and figure that out. Or move your weight to the back. That'll help get you a little spin and launch. But it's really bare bones, and I mean that in a good way. Yes, you have basic loft lie adjustment. I shouldn't say loft lie, face angle, etc. with the hosel. You know, every modern shaft is adjustable these days, but there isn't a lot to it. That said, really good tight feel. I don't have you haven't hit it yet.
I hit Jay's once, and I really like it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it's I love it.
It feels tight and compact, and it has the carbon crown, so most of your weight's in the sole of the club here, and that again brings your center of gravity down, easier launch. Blah 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 blah. We won't go into all the tech stuff that everybody has heard a billion times. But the thing that gets me is the sound with this guy. It just sounds firm, tight, and powerful.
Yeah.
But it doesn't screw like you aren't going to hit on one end of the range and the guy at the other end's looking back like, oh, who's standing right behind me? It's pretty modest. Again, I want to say it's like $299.99. Let's call it an even $300. $300 for a driver this good.
Yeah. I mean, you just don't.
You don't get it.
I mean, that's what Sub70 does. They've beat everybody with the direct-to-consumer, and I was lucky enough to not pay for my clubs. But had I paid for my clubs that they gave me, I mean, it's just an affordable way to get awesome equipment.
Well, and the stuff's so good, and there's a lot of brands doing direct-to-consumer right now. Not to like infomercial this a little bit, but I would say I don't feel like a lot of the other direct-to-consumer brands necessarily have their own footprint. It feels just like rebranded catalog kind of stuff, which probably isn't nice to say, but it's true. Whereas I think like they do a good job of having their own identity and making unique equipment, but it's really good stuff too.
Yeah. I mean, Jason's done an awesome job. I mean, it's gotten so big and grown so fast that, you know, I mean, good problems to have about how fast they're growing.
And we're lucky that they're local to us, and we can be like, yo, you got some new gear we can check out? Okay, fine,
Yes.
we will. But yeah, that's it. The new 849 Pro driver. There's really not a lot to say about it, and that's the beauty of it. It's legitimately very good, very powerful. I thought I hit it pretty well, and then when we played with Jay, my God, the guy he just smokes this thing.
I just like Sub70 clubs. They were my sponsor for a while, so to be like totally upfront, but we don't work together anymore. We're still friends, and I still use their equipment. I just like it's really good, so no surprise to see a good driver.
Yeah, and you know they're a big thing they pitch. I mentioned it in the review, which you can read on DriveRangeHeroes.com at the time of releasing this. They don't just come out with clubs to come out with new clubs. They legitimately think they have something better or fitting a different need in the market that doesn't exist. So they had a driver before. I forgot the model and all that. Sorry. They legitimately think this is a better driver if they came out with it. And again, this is geared toward the person who isn't looking for forgiveness as much, isn't looking for a ton of help in keeping the ball in play. They can do that themselves. They like to shape the shot differently. They do have a more forgiving, higher handicap option on the way. I'm not sure when it's coming out, but that will be coming. All right. That's Gear Talk, and I think we're at a good point to wrap up this segment because it's starting to rain. That's Gear Talk. Ryan and I are not together anymore. We are in different locations. Good. Well, I was going to say good for us wearing the same hats. I'm wearing a different hat, but clearly a different day, different time, different scene. I'll just leave it at this. We had some technical difficulties that all started, I'm going to say, because of the rain. It wasn't that. It was purely on me. And if you want proof of why Chris McEwen is really the MVP of this operation, it's me trying to do a production on my own. All right. So we still want to get a good show in with Ryan Q Info. as he's better known. So Ryan, you're a big deal. You're a big deal on the Twitters, and it feels weird because we've had this conversation 3 times now. But maybe we can do a short form version of how it got started. Because I still, have our kids are like roughly the same age. So it's a pretty heavy start. That ends well, obviously. But I feel like for those who may not be the big Twitter followers and are more YouTube or whatever centric, give us a little background on where At a Case of the Golf One started and how it turned into the Monday Q Info phenomenon that it is today.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very appreciative that it is a phenomenon or whatever. It's definitely not that, but like that I have a lot of followers and yeah, people care about what I have to say. And quick recap is played college golf and then realized quickly when I went to a 4-year school that I had no chance of playing either for a 4-year school or professionally. And then my dad and I did a caddy trip a year after I graduated on mini tours across the country in Canada.
Wow.
That was our guys trip. And it was great insight into how talented guys that are not on the PGA Tour are and that the life isn't exactly what people thought it is. So did that for a bunch of years, met guys, was lucky enough to caddy at Q School for a couple of guys. This is like way before the account. Nationwide events, which is now the Corn Ferry Tour, mini tours, Monday qualifiers, whatever. So I was always a golf nerd, checking scores, especially after I got to know guys. And yeah, fast forward many years, I was in the restaurant business. My son needed brain surgery for Chiari malformation when he was 2. And I decided to leave work. My wife and I decided that I would leave work for a while and just stay home and get him healthy. And I'd be home for like 3 or 4 months and that would be it. And I've never gone back to work. That was 3.5 years ago. It's been a wild ride. And I think that people just didn't realize that this side of pro golf existed. So yeah, it's been an amazing, crazy ride. And I'm very appreciative for all of the things that I've been able to do because of it.
So, I think the story of how, obviously your intentions were not to make this big Monday qualifier persona and characterization when you started the Twitter account. And one part I feel like you left out a little bit was how this was something for yourself to entertain you in your hobby while you were home with small children, etc. for that time. And I still think the story of how fast forward now At a Case of the Golf One is the Twitter account you're stuck with.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was very selfish. I mean, we have, at the time when my son was ill, we had, Jack was not yet 2 and Annie was 4. And so as Bill knows, there's a lot of cartoon watching and, it will make you insane if you watch too many of these shows that these kids watch. So, I really did it for selfish reasons. I mean, very, very selfish. It's like I just wanted to have a place that I could go while cartoons are on, and that was here. And just, I mean, literally, Bill, 0 expectations. There was never an intent to be like, oh, I hope this grows into something. I never even said those.
Right.
I'd never in a million years said it. So, and I think my handle is great insight into that. The idea was a case of the Mondays.
Right.
And that's too long. You can only have a certain amount of letters in your handle. So then I went with a case of the golf. And at some point it was taken. And so Twitter suggested a case of the Golf One. And I was like, yeah, sure. I mean, literally it was like 15 seconds.
I think as the character and the personality that is yourself has grown, in a way that has sort of added to the charm, and like it's been interesting watching at a Case of the Golf 2 sort of come from like popping up every now and then to bust your chops to a legit secondary character that your followers look to hear from.
Yeah. I mean, the latest tweet that like was her most popular tweet. So anything edgy, I always run by my wife to see. Like
Yeah.
she's my like not golf related, but edgy, like a joke or whatever.
Right.
And so she's always my like barometer of whether I should send it out or not. And so Phil sent out a message about shafts, and I was like, I've always lied. I don't even remember the tweet. Like I've always lied about the length of my shaft or something like that.
Right.
And she replied, I can confirm that. And like the funny part of that is like, so I read her the tweet that I was going to, and she started laughing immediately. Like some people think I always get responses like, you run the Case of the 2. I was like, dude, I've never looked at my wife's phone in my life. I don't even know her password. Zero.
Yeah.
Never. I was like, I don't have a burner account. I'm like it. A perfect look into that is how many typos I make. You think I like wouldn't tweet from my burner account at about a week after having it? I mean, I would. So like, I don't have a burner account. I never tweet from my wife's account. And so I was telling her the tweet, and she was laughing. And she was like, "Yeah, you should put that out." Yep.
Yeah,
And then literally, as soon as she was waiting on it. So as soon as I put it out, but yeah, it's become a thing.
Are Janela and Shipnuck trying to figure out how to get her on at Fire Pit as well? And I'll be like, hey, look, we're gonna give you a nice sum just to like keep this guy in check every time we post something.
Yeah. So tomorrow I have, whenever this is posting, on Wednesday I have a meeting with a guy who wants or is considering giving me a significant amount of money for a foundation to help high school programs.
Yeah, I saw you tweet about that. That's awesome.
And Mrs. Monday Q was like, maybe you should have somebody run that. And I was like, easy, killer, easy.
Back off, Case of the Golf 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Just kidding. She's not 2. I don't want her coming after me next. You know what I mean? So one of the stories you told when we recorded like tried to record the 4 versions of this show, I'm fortunate you live close, very close to me. How long did it take you to get to my house, by the way?
Hour and a half, roughly.
I knew it. Roughly 5 minutes, I hope. And, now so we've gotten to know each other, right? Like, you're that guy, Ryan, and it's weird even for me to be like, wait, that's the same guy who like has these crazy viral tweets all the time. Who has the PGA Tour, fighting him tooth and nail and trying to C&D him all over the place. You're still a very normal, fun-loving, regular human, which is most of the appeal, and that's great. What though? I look at the people and the pedigree of golf personality, really just personalities in general, who reply and engage with you. What was the first one you had where you were like, wow, my silly little puppy dog pals escape is this big now? Like, what was that first one?
Yeah, I mean, for me early, it was like guys that some casual fans might not know, but for me it was like, whoa, like Kyle Thompson. He was the first person. I had like 700 followers, and Kyle Thompson followed me. And now in hindsight, I look back and like Kyle Thompson follows everyone. He's like 26,000 followers, and he follows 26,000 accounts. So, but like I didn't know anything about Twitter, so I was like, oh, I mean, and Kyle Thompson has won multiple times on what is now the Korn Ferry Tour. And I sent him a message. It's like, hey man, I'd love to interview you. And he's like, yeah, sure. And I was like, what? And I like never expected him to do it. And like still, I mean, I'm literally at like 750 followers. And I was like, I talked to him he was on the phone for me like for 45 minutes. So that was like the first like really cool moment. It's not close. And then, I mean, I don't want to like name drop, but like PGA Tour started following me at 10,000, and that was like, what? That was the first time, Bill, that I remember going like, maybe this is a thing. Like
Right.
even as my followers grew, I didn't like. I just kind of like, I don't know. Like it was very cool and way overwhelming, and I had no idea. But like when the tour took like the tour doesn't follow a ton of accounts. I don't know what they're up to, but like at the time they were following like 2,300 accounts or something.
Mm-hmm.
And you can imagine how many people the PGA Tour knows and whatever. So I was like, that was the first moment I was like, okay, maybe this is a thing. And like, can I turn this into a business? Or I don't even know. And again, I've said it a million times is like, the only reason I wanted to turn it into a business was to keep it going. Like
Right.
I mean, that was never the intention of this account. But making no money and having a lot of followers doesn't pay bills.
Turns out.
Turns out, yeah.
Tell
And
your. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, go ahead. I mean, there's crazy.
The one you told us on Sunday was a certain NFL player when you were still quote unquote nobody, and
Yeah.
that's the story that to me had to be like, like right now I get like somebody who's just a little bit bigger of a golf blogger, podcaster, whatever, acknowledges something we post. I'm like, oh, that's cool, and then I think of somebody of the caliber that I'm asking about. I don't know what I would do. So tell that story. I think that's an interesting one.
Yeah. I mean, the first time I heard of, so I streamed the Scottsdale Open during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I had some people go out and stream it, and it was literally, this is not an exaggeration, it was literally the only sporting event going on in the entire world at one point.
Yeah.
And so everyone was locked in. I mean, our streaming numbers were like ridiculous. And I saw Aaron Rodgers join, like, for those that don't know, on streaming, you can see who joins, but it's like during that time, it was like very rapidly moving. And it said Aaron Rodgers. And I was like, no way that is the Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
Why is he watching the Scottsdale Open? And I didn't even know he followed me. I missed somehow like the notification that he was following me. So, come to find out he was following me. And obviously that was just like, what the hell? That's super cool. And then I don't know, maybe I had like 25, 30,000 followers, and he sent me a DM and just like, hey man, I love your stuff. And I was like, what? This is literally insane. And him and I have DM'd back and forth a couple of times, and it's very like superficial and very like I always say, like, I try to act like cool, like, hey, thanks, Aaron. Yeah, it's cool, man. And like, but I'm really like, holy hell, what has happened?
Right.
So if you read my tweets, you'd be like, or my DMs back to him, you'd be like, oh, you played it cool. Yeah, I was anything but cool.
Which is fair.
It's absolutely insane. Mike Tirico. I mean, I said it in one of the 17 times we've recorded this, is that we were like, for me as a golf nerd, one of the coolest moments was just happened a couple weeks ago. Is Craig Perks, who won the Players, and like kind of had an obscure but successful golf career, has been very nice to me and asked me for stats and stuff like that on obscure guys, because he does all the Korn Ferry broadcast. And he was at the Korn Ferry Finals event in Omaha, and he sent me a message and was like, hey man, saw that you're here. Can we meet on the range? I went up there and just like literally we just shot the shit for 40 minutes. And it was just like me and Craig Perks. And I was like, what in the hell has happened? Like, this is insane. And he was like complimentary to me. I'm like, what? It's just like, it's insane. And I've said it, is like, when that wears off, I need to be done. If I go up to Craig Perks and I'm like, oh, hey, what's up, man? How's it going? or like I don't get excited about a DM from Aaron Rodgers or Mike Tirico or Frank Nobilo or whatever, like shame on me, and
Yeah.
I hope I quit. I mean,
You know what we'll do if you start if I start seeing on social media you get that kind of feedback and you're becoming that guy and I'm like, this isn't where you wanted, I'll find an excuse, lure you over, and I'll make you watch a bunch of PJ Masks episodes. There is Puppy Dog Pals was bad, but PJ Masks is the worst. And I'll be like, do you need this reminder? Do you need this reminder? And you'll be back at it, back to the guy you always were.
yeah, I mean, I've always said the first article I ever had written about me was by Josh Burhow. It was a wonderful article. It's been great to me, and it was a huge part of my success. Like by Golf Magazine, he's the editor at Golf Magazine, and wrote a long form article on me. And I said in there, and it's hanging on my wall, I was like, when this isn't fun anymore. And to be fair, like as it's grown, there are factors that aren't as fun. There's trolls. There's like, hey, now I have an actual job, and there's deadlines. But like, you know, I get to tweet and write about golf, which is wonderful. I said
like
in
weird
there
stuff in golf too. You know what
yes,
I mean? Like stuff
very
that
obscure.
normally be like, who
Yes.
cares? This isn't Tiger Woods moving the needle.
Yes.
It's like, no, it's
Yes.
some random name you probably. And we can get into it in a minute here, but like it's the Mark Baldwin story. I mean, he is now like Mark Baldwin was not a household name, right? And I think like the fact that's what you get to do and you're expected to do for a job, is amazing. Not like, hey, can you just be another face on the PGA Tour media scene? It's like, nope. Go find the weird thing, do the weird thing, and have fun doing it.
Yeah, and the serious part of it, Bill, is what's very nice for me is that I don't have any real competition now. Like some more mainstream media starting to tell like Monday Q stories and those kind of things, which is great. No problems. They're like, that's wonderful. But for the most part, because no one is telling these stories, I control the narrative. Like in events that I go to, outside of like the main Corn Ferry events, but like mini tours, I don't really care who wins unless the win is something A, spectacular, or B, that person has a great story, right? Like I control the narrative. The Barracuda is a great example of that. I mean, we were 35th to 40th most of the week at an opposite field event, and somehow we were the story. So like, I'm very, very lucky that like I'm not competing against anyone. So it's not like I have so much respect. Like I struggle to write. I joke self-deprecating on Twitter all the time. I'm not a great writer. I think I'm a good storyteller. That's what's made this a thing.
For sure.
But like, I am so envious of the guys who write, how many Bryson stories have been on Twitter in the last three days, right? Like all the guys are writing some version of the same story, and they're doing it like in an hour or 2 hours after the event is over. And it's just like they're trying to find like in that media room at the BMW, there's X amount of reporters. Let's just say 50 or whatever, but 15 from major publications. And they're all going to write some version of the same story. And they have to find an angle about an epic playoff that the other guy is not thinking of in order for theirs to stand out, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how they do it.
You had a brilliant, and I'm not surprised coming from you, but a brilliant tweet. So it's Tuesday as we're recording here, and the whole if you yell Brooksy, you'll get kicked out business has been made public. In your tweet where you're like, all right, I know people have been waiting for it. Here's my take on the yelling Brooksy thing. Space. Nah, I'm just kidding. Monday Q season starts in 13 days. It was such a good tweet.
Yeah. I mean, that's not my gig. And again, I totally respect everybody that has made a name for themselves competing in the same media golf that is like, it's not a big sport. So it's not like, you know, NFL, there's 32 teams, and you can tell a story from a different game. In golf, there's really one story to tell. You can tell the Patrick Cantlay story. You can tell
Right.
Bryson DeChambeau story. I don't know what else to tell. So, like, I'm very lucky. I couldn't do what they do. I'm just not a gifted writer. So, like, I couldn't do what they do. But, like, it's very nice that I get to control the narrative.
For what it's worth, and I'm sure someone else has said this to you before, but for whatever it matters, and maybe this is like, I think why Fire Pit is probably a good fit for you. It's sitting around the fire pit telling stories, right? And I think what I appreciate, it's sort of like what we try to do on our site. Like, I can get into all the super scientific press release engineering gear talk when I talk about equipment, but the reality is, if I ran into you at a bar and we were talking about the new Sub70 driver, as we talked about in part 1 of the show, we're going to have a much more human conversation about it. And I think like that is what's appealing with what you do. More people could come and start telling the same stories you're telling and following the same things, but you tell it like a very much a regular person and a human, like a human side of it. And I don't see other people coming in and recreating that. You know what I mean? So I hope.
I mean, I always say this, Bill, is like why I'm able to tell these stories is, I did this for 3 years for free,
Right.
and I gained the players' trust. Most of the players. I'm sure there's players that could care less about me, but that I don't think anyone's stupid enough to do that.
Right.
So, like, I get stories that other people would never get because I've built the trust that they're going to tell me. I mean, to this just right now, like a player sent me a message that he like posted on Craigslist an ad for a caddy thing. It's a very minor story. Obviously, it's just like one tweet. It's not a story. It's just a funny tweet that he like is looking for a caddy for first stage at first stage of Q school via Craigslist. But it's like I have some sort of Twitter relationship with that player over X amount of time.
Right.
And he didn't just send it to me out of the blue. Like, we've messaged back and forth and I've tweeted about him and all those kind of things. So it's like, no one's stupid enough to do what I've done. Like, no one is going to take 3 years and dedicate their life to getting to know these players in order to get to this point.
There is a lot to be said about the old, adage of sometimes you have to be stupid to be great. And maybe that's what you're doing here. I don't know.
It's super stupid.
Speaking of players and gaining their trust, I feel like we'd be remiss to not talk about it, but the Mark Baldwin story. Now, Mark Baldwin this wasn't just a weird happenstance. You and Mark do have a history and like a very direct, close personal relationship already. But what a wild event and story that turned into. So as you already alluded to earlier, Barracuda Championship, opposite field event. Yeah, you're not necessarily getting Rory and DJ there, but there's plenty established and successful PGA Tour players attending and playing this event. And next thing you know, Monday Q Info is on the bag, seemingly out of nowhere.
Via Monday Q.
Yeah, via a Monday Q. Did you caddy? You didn't caddy the Monday Q as well, right? Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah, I did.
That's awesome. And talk about everything just falling into place for your boy over there. So talk about that. I think the wild ups and downs of that week, while you could follow him on Twitter and you probably picked up some of it, and you did a brilliant – here's another case. You did a brilliant job, I think, every day grinding and posting blogs up and summarizing your experience. But talk about it a little bit here and just maybe what we may or may not know about that week and how it all played out.
Yeah. Mark's wife was sick on Sunday. Mark is way down the list in the Korn Ferry points. So he's like I have to win somewhere in order to keep my card. I might as well win on the PGA Tour. It's a lot more beneficial. And in an opposite field event, we debated back and forth with other players. It might be easier to win the Barracuda than it would be the Korn Ferry event in Utah. That's up for debate, but it's definitely close at the very least.
Right.
It's debatable. And so he's like, I'll come up and play the Monday. And if I don't get in, I'll go on to Utah, and so be it. And Barracuda had been nice enough to just fly me out. This is before we'd even planned to Mark to get there. And I was going to cover the Monday and then play in the Pro-Am on Wednesday and then go home. And so, honestly, this is where I have to thank the tour because of the rules the tour has put in place. Like, I really can't cover the Monday like I did before. So,
that was a very diplomatic way of speaking to that, by the way.
So I was like, I wasn't going to caddy for him. Laz was going to caddy for him. Another guy from Fire Pit was with me.
Chris McEwen, by the way, both of us are big Laz guys, but Chris loves Laz. Laz is good. I like Laz. His online presence, very entertaining.
Yes. So Mark got in at like 2 a.m, had flight delays. A funny part of this story is we had booked Mark a room, and like me and Laz were in like regular old rooms, him in his room, mine down the wall. So Mark gets into his room like 2:15 in the morning. I had just lost $100 on blackjack table in Reno, Nevada, which is an amazingly wild city. And I had chicken tenders from the cafe, and I was eating them on my bed, and we had a wake-up call, 5 hours, 4.5 hours. And Mark sends me a text that says, "This is the best room I've ever stayed in." And it literally was the penthouse. I don't know how we got it. We got it for $89. And it was like a full bar, dining room, 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. Anyway, for $89. It's a funny part of the story. Mark's like, had I known I got this room, I would have been a lot earlier, left my sick wife in a heartbeat to be here.
Yeah, right.
And so anyway, next morning, get up, go caddy for Mark, made 5 birdies on the front. Thought 8 was the number, almost chipped in on 18 for 8. Got us to 7. We didn't think it was enough. Here's a funny another part of the funny story is we played with a kid from Arizona. I don't even remember his name, Sam something. And on the 18th hole, he holed a bunker shot for eagle to shoot 6, and he gave it a very huge fist bump, like Tiger-esque, and he was like super pumped. And I felt so bad for him because we thought we were out at 7. We knew for sure he was out at 6. And it's a good lesson for the players that if someone in your group beats you, you're probably not going to be in. So he was like...
Just a thought, right.
Yeah. There's only 4 spots. So that's a funny part of the story. But he's a good player. And hopefully he goes on to do well. So got into a playoff. Justin Warren missed a 12-inch putt that everyone's seen. That's insane that they posted it. And we 2-putted for birdie. We had beers on the green. And then the week was off. And, Mark was playing really good. One of my favorite moments of the week was Tuesday. Joined Bill Haas and Nick Watney for a practice round. Just a couple holes. Mark played them flawlessly, and Mark is super long and drove it on the 9th hole. All those guys hit 3-wood off the tee. Mark hit 2-iron, and Mark drove it by those guys, got up to the 9th green, and Bill Haas said, "Man, that was really impressive. If you play like that, I'll see you on Sunday." And how important that is Mark was considering not playing Q School and not like this was his last run. And he points to that moment even before him making the cut and playing well and all those kinds of things. It was like, what the hell am I doing if a FedEx Cup champion is like, hey, that was really impressive what I just watched. A guy who has watched a ton of golf in his life, obviously, and doesn't just like come out and say, wow, that was really impressive to just some random dude off the street. Like, he's seen a billion rounds of golf. So, Mark points to it as
has the number one ranked shot in, according to the PGA Tour and FedEx Cup Championship history. Telling you that.
For sure. Yeah,
man.
So it was cool, and then we made the cut. Had a very cool moment up 18. I just thanked him and said it was the coolest week I've ever spent in golf. It was, I mean, literally perfect. It was awesome. And funny part of that story is number 18 is straight up the hill, and we were having like this special moment, and then like I was out of breath, and I was like, it was. I mean, A, I'm not in great shape. B, it was raining smoke and ash on us for 2.5 days because the wildfires in the area. And 3, I'd carried the bag for 50 miles, literally. And up the hill, I was running out of breath. And I was like, Mark, you got to shut the hell up, dude. I'm out of breath. And so
I just can't do this right now, right?
Yeah. So we hit a wedge to 20 feet and made birdie. It was an awesome ending.
We've talked about in our takes of this show about meeting Santa, going to the storage place to get the brand new sponsor embroidered on Mark's shirts, and I think here I'll just quickly wrap that story into a package here. Mark tweeted something about hey, I making the tournament, buy diapers this week, kind of a deal, and GoPuff saw it and said, oh, we got this covered. So let's be honest, this guy, is chasing a dream. His wife's supporting them, I think, is what I read, right? Like, basically, she's enabled it.
Yeah, I mean, she did it for a while now. Yeah.
So,
I mean,
he's tweeting stuff like that, right? And this guy's thinking about wrapping up his golf career. Okay, he's a little more inspired with Bill Haas and Nick Watney, etc. But then the guy made the cut, and again, it's an opposite field event and all, but he made the cut, finished middle of the pack-ish. In so many ways, what a life-changing week for this guy. Then nice little paycheck to take home, everything, and then I think you said that Strixon has if you want a qualified deal, what a life. I would have to imagine life-changing week for him too.
Yeah, just financially. He got some money from GoPuff. He has a contract with Strixon that a lot of guys have who have Korn Ferry status, that if you Monday qualify into a PGA Tour event, you get a bonus. And then he made $20,000 at the event. That's like a 4th place finish or something at a Korn Ferry event, which he hasn't had in the last 2 seasons. So, it was, and again, he got a lot of, Mark's a great dude, and this is all deserved, and I'm more than happy to be some sort of messenger to get him there. But he deserves every second of it. He's been amazing to me. And I'm super happy that I hope he gets through Q school, because I know if he doesn't get through Q school, there's another decision. He has a 1-year-old, and his wife has stayed home for a while now, and he has a decision to make. But he's playing really well. He's actually second in a mini tour event out in Arizona with the final day coming up tomorrow. He's playing really well. So I hope he gets through Q school, and I hope we can have another special moment at some PGA Tour event, because
that would certainly be nice.
I'm done caddying. Unless it's at a PGA Tour event for Mark. So,
fair enough. And if you also want to see more of Mark's work, you can check out the Any Given Monday podcast hosted by yourself, produced by PGA Tour player Mark Baldwin.
Yeah,
right, check that out.
He's so great. All I do is record it, send it to him, and be like, make the best you can of this, buddy.
And look, if he can do that, maybe, maybe we should have called on him and said, hey, Got another show we need some help with. Anything you can do? All right. At A Case of the Golf 1, Monday Q Info. Those two separate things. At A Case of the Golf 1 on Twitter. Check Ryan out there. Ryan, you also do a lot of stuff as a member of Fire Pit Collective. Over there with those boys, Matt Janella and Shipnuck and the dude Laz. Laz is the best, and others. Check that out there. Is there anything else I missed? Anything else you want to drop in there?
Dude, you don't. As long as you hit record on this, you don't even have to plug anything. As long as this is working, then you don't. I mean, no need to plug.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. All right. I'm Bill Bush, driverangeheroes.com, at Range Heroes on all the social media. Go check out that Sub70 849 Pro driver review that feels like we talked about 4 days ago. But as you're watching this, we've only been, roughly 20 minutes, half hour ago. Check that out. This is Chris McEwen's YouTube page. Follow him at Chris McEwen. Like this video, subscribe, leave a comment, do all the bells, do all the things, all right? Ryan, thank you so much for joining us and coming back so we can wrap up this episode. Hopefully I'll see you soon, maybe play some golf. Rest of you, thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.